She's not pulling away because she's losing interest. She's pulling away because her feelings are getting harder to control. Love isn't about owning someone. It's about genuinely appreciating them. At first, she shows clear interest. She leans closer, laughs a bit longer than usual, and her texts arrive quickly, warm, and open. Then, out of nowhere, there's silence. Most men read that shift as rejection. They assume they messed up. Inside, they start to panic, and from that panic, they react. But what experienced men eventually learn is this: distance doesn't always mean disinterest. Sometimes it means the emotions are becoming real. When attraction shifts from light and playful to something meaningful, it activates deeper feelings: excitement, vulnerability, and risk. For many women, that level of emotional intensity can feel overwhelming. Not because she doesn't care, but because she actually does. The real issue isn't her silence, it's how most men respond to it. They start over explaining. They send long paragraphs for reassurance. They chase clarity and push for labels. Without realizing it, they end up confirming her fear. If she stepped back because the feelings were growing too fast, your sudden pursuit only adds pressure. It signals that things are escalating, exactly what she was trying to slow down. There's a psychological shift that many men misunderstand. When a woman truly loses interest, her energy turns flat, cold, and indifferent. There's no emotional tension left. It feels clean and final. But when she's afraid of falling too deeply, her distance feels conflicted. There's still warmth beneath the quiet. She still watches. She still replies, just more slowly. The door isn't slammed shut, it's just slightly closed. The key difference is emotional charge. Indifference has none. Fear has a lot. If you mistake fear for rejection and respond with neediness, attraction collapses. But if you read it correctly and stay grounded, calm, and steady, you create safety without pressure. That's where mature men separate themselves from reactive boys, when they don't chase silence and they don't over explain. You don't ask for constant reassurance. You stay composed. You give her room. You keep living your life with quiet confidence. Because when she's scared of falling, what she's really testing, consciously or not, is this: can you handle emotional intensity without losing your center? If you can, she feels safe enough to return. If you can't, her instinct to retreat slowly becomes permanent. Understanding this changes everything. You stop sabotaging good connections with emotional overreactions. You stop forcing clarity in moments where patience would have created it naturally. Sometimes she isn't avoiding you. She's simply protecting herself from how deeply she's starting to feel. When feelings trigger fear instead of rejection, most men misread the entire situation, and that's where things quietly begin to fall apart. Here's what you need to understand. When a woman develops unexpected emotions, her first reaction often isn't pure happiness. It's tension, it's alertness. It's like a subtle internal alarm switching on. Not because you did anything wrong, not because her interest is fading, but because emotional closeness can feel like a loss of control. And in female psychology, losing control can feel risky or unsafe, especially if past experiences linked closeness with pain. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff. You're not falling, you're completely safe, but you can feel the possibility of falling. That possibility alone is enough to make your body instinctively step back. That's what vulnerability feels like when someone isn't fully comfortable with falling in love in a healthy, secure way. The potential depth itself creates fear. Now, here's where most men ruin things without realizing it. They try to fix the situation. They over explain their intentions. They flood her with reassurance. They lean in harder, thinking more clarity equals more safety. It doesn't. Stay steady instead. Because when you rush to calm her fear, you unintentionally confirm that things are getting emotionally intense. You create pressure in the exact moment she needed space. That isn't maturity. That's anxiety disguised as leadership. And women are extremely sensitive to emotional pressure. This isn't about manipulation or cheap mind games. It's about understanding attraction and female psychology at a deeper level. The quiet, unspoken mechanics that drive emotional connection. When she pulls back, she isn't playing games. She's regulating her emotions. She's trying to catch her breath. If you misread that pause as rejection, you'll respond with extra texts, long explanations, and repeated attempts to fix the situation. Don't just try to appear calm. Be grounded. Be the man who can sit with silence without forcing an outcome. Ask yourself honestly, the last time she became distant, did you send that extra message because it was truly needed? Or because you couldn't handle the uncertainty? Most men chase clarity for their own comfort, not to support her emotional space. And by doing that, they unintentionally train her nervous system to associate closeness with pressure. That's how attraction slowly fades. If you really want to understand psychology at a deeper level and truly grasp female emotional dynamics, you have to master your own reactions first. Don't chase reassurance. Don't demand instant answers. Become the emotional anchor. That's how you create safety. That's how you allow feelings to grow at a pace she can handle. And that's how you stop confusing fear with rejection and instead become the man who makes love feel stable rather than overwhelming. Modern women are often taught to prioritize independence above everything else. Build your career, create your own life, never rely on anyone. And honestly, that's not a bad message. It's empowering. It builds strength, resilience, and a strong sense of identity. But here's the part people rarely discuss. When a woman who takes pride in her self-sufficiency starts developing real feelings for a man, something unexpected happens internally. It's not just happiness, it's conflict. One part of her wants deep connection. Another part fears losing herself within that connection. That tension is real. It's not drama, it's psychology. She begins asking quiet questions she may never say out loud. If I let him fully into my life, will I lose my autonomy? If I care this deeply, does that make me weaker? What if I end up needing him more than he needs me? These aren't accusations toward you. They're reflections of the conditioning she's absorbed for years. She has been taught, directly or indirectly, to associate dependence with risk. So when genuine emotions begin to grow, her nervous system doesn't simply relax. It evaluates. It scans for any possible loss of identity. Listen carefully. The woman who seems hardest to truly get close to is often the one who desires closeness the most. She isn't cold, she's cautious. She isn't distant. She's weighing the emotional cost. To her, falling deeply can feel like giving up control, and control has protected her for a long time. Don't mistake that protection for rejection. Be observant. Be steady. That's what a high-value man does. Ask yourself something honest. Have you ever stepped back from something you genuinely wanted because it mattered too much? Maybe it was a career move that could have changed your life. Maybe it was a dream you quietly talked yourself out of because the stakes felt overwhelming. You told yourself the timing wasn't right, but the truth was, you were afraid of how badly you wanted it. If you've ever done that, then you already understand her inner conflict. The closer she feels to you, the more she risks emotional exposure. And exposure is uncomfortable for someone who has built her identity around strength and independence. Here's the irony. The men who stir this inner tension are often the ones truly worth keeping. Average connections don't shake a woman's foundation. Casual interest doesn't keep her up at night. Mediocre chemistry doesn't spark deep questions about identity and vulnerability. Only something real does that. Only a man with grounded masculine energy creates that kind of emotional gravity. So if she pulls back slightly when things start to feel intense, don't assume you failed. Don't panic. Don't chase reassurance. Stay calm. This is where many men lose their frame. They see distance and instantly try to close the gap with more texts, more explanations, more emotional urgency. Don't do that. It signals instability. It tells her your confidence relies on her constant validation. A high-value man doesn't fall apart when space appears. He stays centered. He understands that attraction often grows in tension, not under pressure. You need to realize something important. When a woman values her independence, she's testing whether a connection with you will expand her life or shrink it. She's observing closely. Does being around you make her feel more like herself or less? Does your presence support her autonomy or quietly compete with it? If she senses that closeness with you would require sacrificing her identity, she'll slow everything down. But if she feels that your masculine energy strengthens her sense of self instead of threatening it, she will naturally lean in. Don't try to convince her that she won't lose herself. Show her. Keep building your life. Keep leading with purpose. Keep embodying stability. When she sees that you're not trying to control her world, she relaxes. When she notices that you respect her independence while staying grounded in your own, she feels safe. That's how deeper attraction forms, not by overpowering her independence, not by minimizing it, but by complementing it. Remember this clearly. If she pulls back, it may not be because you're lacking. It may be because you're exactly what she's been afraid of finding. Real connection demands growth. Growth disrupts comfort, and comfort naturally resists disruption. That tension is normal, so don't read her hesitation as a final judgment. See it as proof that you've made a real emotional impact. Stay steady, stay patient, be the high-value man who doesn't rush outcomes. Masculine energy remains calm under pressure. It doesn't beg, it doesn't demand, it stays grounded. And when she realizes that closeness with you doesn't require her to give up her identity, the very fear that made her step back slowly turns into trust. If this message resonates, don't just sit there overthinking it. Step up. Lead with calm strength. When a woman pulls back out of fear, the worst move is to chase harder or shrink smaller. Hold your frame. Stay centered. Let her feel that being with you doesn't mean losing herself. It means becoming more of who she already is. And if you truly understand this, you'd say, I don't chase fear. I lead with strength. Stay committed to growth. Seek psychological clarity and remember this every day. When she hesitates, it's not always rejection. Sometimes it's simply the weight of something real. Here's a truth most men only grasp after years of confusion. What feels like distance is often fear, and what looks like avoidance can actually be self-protection. You assume she's losing interest, but in many cases, she isn't running from you. She's running from the intensity of her own emotions. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, you have control over your mind, not outside events. That's where this starts. Control your mind. Master your reactions. Develop the iron mindset that separates men who react from men who lead. The reality is she has probably tested you more than once without you even noticing. Not because she sat down and planned it, not because she was playing games. These tests are instinctive. They're emotional safety checks, protection mechanisms rooted in human psychology. She goes a little cold. She becomes distant. She delays replying. She watches to see if you panic. She casually mentions another man and studies your reaction. She cancels a plan last minute and observes whether you stay composed or fall apart. She opens up about something vulnerable and notices whether you can hold that space without trying to fix or control it. These aren't manipulative tactics, they're evaluations. And here's the hard truth. You probably failed some of those moments. Not because you lack value, not because you're incapable, but because you reacted from insecurity instead of grounded strength. When she pulled back, you doubled your effort. You sent more texts. You tried to regain control instead of maintaining calm confidence. When she mentioned another man, your tone probably shifted. You either showed irritation or forced yourself to sound indifferent. When she canceled plans, you may have taken it personally instead of calmly continuing with your day. Understand this clearly. She wasn't testing whether you liked her. She already knew that. She was testing whether you could handle emotional uncertainty without losing your center. She was observing your stability, your frame, your ability to stay steady in moments of ambiguity. That's where deeper attraction lives. As Seneca taught, true bravery creates freedom. In this context, freedom means emotional independence. Can you give space without resentment? Can you remain consistent when she becomes inconsistent? Can you show genuine interest without becoming dependent on immediate validation? In modern dating, surrounded by constant notifications and endless social media comparisons, emotional steadiness is rare. Most men react instantly. Most chase reassurance. Most push for clarity too quickly. You must not. Operate from timeless Stoic principles. Build an iron mindset. Remember what Stoicism truly represents: calm strength under pressure. When she pulls back, you don't chase, you stay centered. When she casually mentions another man, you don't compete, you remain unshaken. When plans change, you adapt smoothly. That is strength. That is control. That is quiet confidence that never needs to announce itself. Here's a shift that changes everything. Don't respond by playing games. Don't mirror manipulation. Don't create fake distance. Instead, become genuinely secure. Real security cannot be faked for long. It must be built, trained, and practiced daily. Study Stoic teachings. Internalize that ancient wisdom. Apply it in small, real-life moments. When anxiety rises, breathe. When ego flares, pause. When fear of loss appears, remind yourself that your value doesn't decrease just because someone else feels uncertain. That is the iron mind in action. That is Stoicism lived in real time. Understand this deeply. When a woman senses that you are grounded, that you're not trying to control her reactions, that you're not shaken by emotional waves, her fear begins to decrease. She feels safer. She feels space to lean in instead of pulling away. Fear of falling grows strongest when she senses instability. But when you are calm, steady, and self-contained, her defenses soften naturally. This isn't manipulation. This is emotional maturity. This is self-leadership. Leadership over your own reactions, not control over her, not dominance over the dynamic. Master your responses. That is the difference between chasing and truly attracting. There's a big difference between reacting and responding, between tension and trust. In a world where attention is treated like currency and validation is available everywhere, the man who stays steady immediately stands out. He doesn't rush. He doesn't beg. He doesn't overanalyze every delayed reply. He lives a full life. He has purpose beyond any single interaction. He enjoys connection, but he doesn't rely on it for his sense of worth. That mindset alone changes everything. Remember this: if she creates space, it doesn't automatically mean rejection. Sometimes it simply means she's feeling something real and hasn't figured out how to process it yet. Your role is not to convince her. Your role is not to pressure her. Your role is to remain centered. Build the iron mind. Practice timeless Stoic wisdom. Embody Stoicism not as a slogan, but as a way of living. Calm in uncertainty. Confident without arrogance. Interested without emotional attachment. That is the standard. That is the path. Master that, and you won't just pass her tests, you'll rise above them. Now let's talk about the push-pull pattern, because this is one of the most misunderstood signals in female psychology. Misread it, and you can sabotage a connection that actually had real potential. One day she's replying instantly, fully engaged, laughing, opening up, sharing personal stories, creating that rare feeling of connection that makes you think, this is different. Then the next day, her energy shifts. Replies become shorter. Time gaps grow longer. Emotional warmth fades as if someone quietly lowered the temperature in the room. Your first instinct is to assume rejection. You think you must have said something wrong. You tell yourself her interest disappeared overnight. Slow down. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't let insecurity create a story that isn't true. Because what's often happening has little to do with lost attraction and everything to do with internal conflict. The warmer she feels, the more emotionally exposed she becomes. And the more exposed she feels, the more her protective instincts activate. That's the rhythm. That's the pattern. That's the emotional equation behind many so-called psychology tricks people talk about without truly understanding. If you pay attention, you'll notice it's not random at all. It's proportional. You have a deep, vulnerable, electric conversation at night, and the next morning she creates distance. Not because she stopped caring, but because closeness triggered fear, and fear triggered retreat. If she genuinely didn't care, her behavior would be flat and consistent. Consistently distant, consistently disengaged. There would be no warmth, no depth, no sudden shifts. Just indifference. But this back and forth dynamic signals tension inside her. Part of her wants to lean in, and part of her wants to protect herself. And often, for a moment, the protective side wins. Understand this clearly. When a woman begins to feel something real, that internal tension naturally appears. She feels the risk too. And for most people, it's not love itself that scares them. It's losing control, losing independence, losing emotional stability. So don't misread her pause as rejection. Be observant, be calm, be grounded. The hidden pattern always reveals itself if you pay attention. Notice when she goes cold. Is it right after she shared something personal? Right after she admitted a fear? Right after you both experienced that rare, honest connection most people spend years searching for? If distance consistently follows vulnerability, that's your confirmation. That's female psychology in motion. That's how real love slowly collides with the fear of falling too fast. You've probably been in this situation before. Everything feels perfect one moment, and the next, you're staring at your phone, replaying every sentence, analyzing every emoji, spiraling into unnecessary anxiety. Here's the truth: she wasn't rejecting you, she was regulating her own emotions. She was trying to slow down what felt overwhelming. Once you understand this, your entire approach must shift. Now you see these so-called psychology tricks not as manipulation, but as emotional self-protection. Don't chase harder when she pulls back. Don't flood her with reassurance. Don't demand explanations in a moment when she's trying to regain balance. Doing any of that only confirms her fear that things are moving too fast, that she's losing space, that she can't breathe. Instead, stay steady, stay composed, mirror calm energy. Emotional steadiness creates safety, and safety is what allows feelings to grow without panic. Remember, panic repels, patience attracts, pressure suffocates, presence strengthens. If you want to understand how to fall in love in a mature, grounded way, respect the natural rhythm of connection. Connection expands and contracts before it stabilizes. That's normal, that's human. And it's especially true in female psychology, where emotional depth often moves faster than conscious comfort. So when you see the push pull pattern, don't interpret it as a game. Don't assume confusion about you. Interpret it as her navigating the intensity of what she feels. Your role isn't to fix it, force it, or interrogate it. Your role is to remain centered. Keep living your life. Maintain your standards. Keep your pace. Respond warmly when she leans in, calmly when she leans back. Understanding gives you power, yeah, but here, power isn't control over her. It's control over yourself. When you master your reaction, you change the dynamic completely. You stop taking every shift personally. You stop reacting emotionally to temporary distance. You stop doing the one thing that destroys promising connections, over pursuing out of fear. This is where most men fail, not because they lack value, but because they misread the signals. They see fluctuation and assume finality. They see hesitation and assume rejection. But fluctuation is often just processing. Hesitation is often protection. And protection exists because something meaningful is at stake. Be the man who understands the pattern. Be the man who sees beyond the surface. Know that when closeness triggers retreat, it may actually indicate that something real is forming beneath the surface. When you respond with calm strength instead of insecurity, you turn confusion into clarity, tension into trust, and uncertainty into momentum. You're no longer reacting blindly, you're operating with awareness, and awareness applied consistently is the ultimate advantage in love and in life. If this perspective opened your eyes and helped you see the push-pull dynamic in a new way, don't just watch and move on. Apply it. Stop reacting emotionally. Start responding strategically. Like this video, subscribe for more sharp psychological insight, and share it with a man who needs to hear this before he jeopardizes a good connection. Lock it into your mindset. I don't chase confusion. I understand the pattern. Now, here's a subtle sign. Quiet, easy to miss if you're impatient, but once you notice it, you can't unsee it. She takes hours to reply to your messages, yet she views your stories within minutes. She may seem distant in person, her tone measured, her words cool, But then you catch her glancing at you when she thinks you aren't noticing. She claims she's busy, yet she remembers details from conversations that happened weeks ago, things you barely remember saying yourself. That is not random. That is not coincidence. That is focus. This is someone paying attention while pretending not to. And it tells you something crucial. She cares more than she's letting on. Women who are genuinely uninterested do not invest mental energy tracking your life. They don't replay conversations in their heads. They don't notice subtle changes in your mood, your haircut, or your schedule. Indifference is quiet, flat, and consistent. Fear mixed with attraction is different. It's watchful, alert, and emotionally engaged behind the scenes. A woman wrestling with her feelings will monitor from a safe distance. She notices when you post, which friends you hang out with, or when you update your profile picture. And here's the tricky part. Noticing means caring. Caring means vulnerability. And vulnerability feels risky. So she compensates. She pulls back in direct interaction. She delays replies. She acts composed, not because she feels nothing, but because she feels too much. Think about the last time you truly liked someone. You paid attention to details you normally wouldn't. You checked their social media even after promising yourself not to. You replayed conversations in your mind. That's human nature. That's how attraction works. She's doing the same thing. The difference? She may be fighting it harder. She may fear losing control. She may fear how quickly her emotions could deepen. Now listen carefully. Don't confront her about it. Don't accuse. Don't demand clarity. Be calm, be centered, be observant. A high-value man doesn't panic over delayed replies. He reads behavior, not just words. He understands female psychology without taking it personally. That is masculine energy. Steady, grounded, self-assured. When you realize she's watching, you gain an advantage. You can communicate without saying a word. Live well. Post about things that genuinely matter to you. Show growth, discipline, and depth. Not to provoke her, not to play games, but because that is who you are becoming. Here's the truth. When you live with purpose, you naturally attract women. You don't chase attention, you generate it. Don't perform for her. That's needy. Thrive for yourself. A man who is fulfilled, progressing, and emotionally balanced radiates masculine energy effortlessly. And yes, she will notice, even if she never comments, even if she never reacts publicly. Silent attention is still attention. This is where many men go wrong. They try to force reassurance. They try to expose her interest. They try to speed up the process. Don't rush it. Attraction that grows quietly under observation often becomes stronger than attraction that's loudly declared. A high-value man understands pacing. He knows that sometimes the most powerful move is patience. So, what should you do? Continue building your life. Improve your body, your mindset, your social circle. Continue becoming the kind of man who attracts women effortlessly because his life is already full. When she sees that you are thriving with or without her validation, her fear begins to soften. Safety grows where stability exists. Remember, silence does not equal indifference. Distance does not equal disinterest. Sometimes it means processing. Sometimes it means fear of falling. When you understand this, you stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically. That is maturity. That is confidence. That is masculine energy at its best. Many men fail because they focus too much on her words and not enough on the environment around her. Here's a subtle sign. Her friends know. When you walk into a room, notice if her friends exchange subtle smiles, look at you with curiosity, or seem puzzled by her distant behavior. Pay attention when one of them casually says, "She talks about you," or "You should text her." That is not random chatter. That is evidence. Women don't bring up men they feel nothing for with their inner circle. They protect their space, their time, their energy. If you are being discussed, you matter. As Marcus Aurelius taught through Stoic wisdom, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Stop obsessing over her temporary distance. Observe the pattern with an iron mind. If her friends are invested, it means she has been talking. She's shared how you made her laugh, replayed conversations, described details, confessed confusion, admitted hesitation. Understand this clearly. Her friends know both sides of her story, the confident side she shows you and the vulnerable side she hides. That matters in modern dating, where texting is inconsistent and emotions are guarded. Men often misread space as rejection. They panic, they chase, they over-explain. Don't do that. Stay steady. Because when her friends start creating opportunities for you to be alone together, when they conveniently disappear, when they subtly encourage contact, that is coordination. That is support. That is external confirmation. They're not helping a man she's dismissed. They're helping a man she cannot stop thinking about. Epictetus, one of the pillars of Stoic wisdom, reminded us, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Be the man who reads reality accurately. Be the man who does not crumble under mixed signals. A woman's inner circle is naturally protective. They don't invest energy in someone irrelevant. They don't waste strategy on someone temporary. If they are watching you, measuring you, quietly rooting for you, it's because they see potential. They see consistency. They see value. And sometimes they see what she is too afraid to admit. Fear of falling is real, especially for women who guard their independence, especially in a world where everyone is taught to protect themselves first. When feelings grow stronger than expected, distance can appear. Not because attraction faded, but because it intensified. That's where Stoicism becomes practical, not just philosophical. You win by holding your frame. You win by not reacting emotionally to every shift. You win by observing patterns instead of chasing reassurance. An iron mind does not jump to conclusions. An iron mind gathers evidence. Her friends are evidence. Their behavior is data. Their subtle encouragement is confirmation. If you doubt yourself every time she pulls back, you lose position. If you stay centered, calm, and decisive, you increase attraction. As Seneca said, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Most men imagine rejection where there is only hesitation. Most men sabotage momentum by trying to force clarity too soon. Do not force. Do not plead. Do not overanalyze every text. Stand firm. Move forward with quiet confidence. When her friends are involved, the situation is bigger than one quiet phase. It means your presence made an impact. It means your conversations lingered. It means your name is repeated even when you're not there. That is power. And power doesn't need to announce itself. It remains steady. Old Stoic wisdom teaches discipline over impulse. Practice that here. Let her process. Let her feel. Let her friends gently nudge her forward. Your job is not to rescue her from confusion. Your job is to remain the calm option. She will step towards you when she's ready. That is stoicism in real time. That is masculine steadiness without pressure. And remember this clearly. When her inner circle is quietly rooting for you, you are not imagining things. You are witnessing alignment. Stay grounded. Stay patient. Stay consistent. Develop an iron mind, one that doesn't overreact to temporary distance, but instead recognizes the deeper signals. The man who masters his reactions masters the outcome. The man who masters himself never loses, even while waiting. If her friends are watching you, talking about you, and subtly creating opportunities for you to connect, that is not random. That is confirmation. Women do not make a man the topic of conversation with their closest friends unless he matters. So stop doubting yourself. Stop overthinking every pause, every mixed signal. When her friends are rooting for you, it means something real is happening beneath the surface. Hold your ground, stay calm. Let her process her feelings without chasing reassurance. Strength is patience. Confidence is restraint. If you've made it this far, understand this. External confirmation beats emotional guesswork. Lock it in. Comment, I trust what is real, I stay steady, I own it, and I show up. Like the man who does not panic when the signs are already in his favor. The right response separates a man who understands psychology from a man who reacts on impulse. When she suddenly pulls back, most men make one of two classic mistakes. Either they chase harder, trying to convince her it's safe to stay, or they shut down completely, assuming she's playing games. Both feel logical in the moment, but both fail. When you chase, you quietly signal that your stability depends on her reassurance. When you disappear, you signal that your interest was shallow and conditional. Neither approach builds emotional safety. Neither sparks real attraction. To understand female psychology and how to fall in love in a way that lasts, you must see this clearly. Attraction grows in space, not pressure. Don't rush to fix what feels uncomfortable. Don't retreat out of pride to protect your ego. Be grounded. Be steady. That is the difference. When a woman starts developing real feelings, especially later in life when she has more to lose, it can trigger internal conflict. She may value her independence. She may fear losing control. She may wonder what happens if this becomes real. That pullback you interpret as rejection is often her processing emotions she didn't expect. This is where most men fail the unspoken test. They panic. They overtext. They demand clarity. Or they walk away silently hoping she will chase. Don't do that. Respond with calm strength. Give her space, but do not vanish. Match her energy, not as a tactic, not out of pettiness, but out of quiet self-respect. If she slows down, you slow down. If she takes time, you take time. Not to punish her, not to manipulate her, but to show that your life is full, meaningful, and moving forward, regardless of her temporary uncertainty. This is one of the most powerful psychology principles you'll ever learn. Emotional steadiness creates safety. When she sees that her distance doesn't shake you, something shifts. The tension lowers. The fear softens. She realizes she isn't dealing with a man who collapses under ambiguity. She's dealing with a man who understands female psychology and respects the natural rhythm of how love develops. Here's a refined layer most men overlook. Once you pull back toward your mission, not toward emptiness. Don't sit at home staring at your phone hoping to give her space. Be busy. Be engaged in your work. Be present with friends. Be committed to your purpose. That is attractive. That is stabilizing. Then, when you reach out, do it with lightness and specificity. Don't send anxious check-ins fishing for reassurance. Haven't heard from you. Everything okay? That places emotional pressure on her and exposes insecurity. Instead, share something real from your world. Saw that hiking trail you mentioned? Thought you'd like it. Hope your week's going well. Short, calm, genuine. This communicates interest without neediness. It shows you're thinking of her, but you're not orbiting around her response. Do you see the difference? One approach asks for validation. The other offers value. One is tense. The other is relaxed. In female psychology, relaxation signals confidence. If you truly want to master psychology in mature relationships, internalize this principle. Stability is magnetic. Don't over-explain your intentions. Don't try to talk her out of her fear. Be the evidence that closeness with you feels safe. That is how to fall in love in a way that builds trust instead of anxiety. When she senses that you're not clinging, not withdrawing in bitterness, but simply standing firm in your own life, she begins to lean back in. Not because you forced her, not because you persuaded her, but because your emotional composure lowered the stakes. Love deepens when it feels chosen, not chased. Here's the truth for men between 35 and 70 who've lived enough life to know better. You do not need to compete for attention. You do not need to convince anyone to see your worth. You must embody it. That is the mature response. That is the calm response. That is the attractive response. When she pulls back, stay centered. When she hesitates, stay purposeful. When she tests the space, don't fill it with noise. Fill it with quiet confidence. Because when she sees that you're not shaken by her distance, the fear that made her retreat begins to fade. In that calm space, connection has room to grow again. Now, here's what actually creates real attraction during this phase. And if you miss this distinction, you'll sabotage something that could have grown naturally. Women are drawn to emotional depth. But notice this clearly. Women are drawn to emotional depth, not emotional dependency. Read that again. Depth pulls her closer. Dependency pushes her away. Many men, even intelligent, experienced men between 35 and 70, confuse the two. Depth means you are in touch with your feelings. You can articulate them clearly. You can say what you feel without flinching. You are comfortable with vulnerability because you know it does not reduce you. That is masculine energy at its most refined. Dependency, on the other hand, means you need her to calm your storms, validate your worth, or give your life meaning. One is attractive. The other feels heavy. One signals a high-value man. The other signals someone who has outsourced his emotional stability. Don't confuse openness with neediness. Be emotionally aware, not emotionally attached to an outcome. That is the difference. Here's the real test. When she goes distant, do you panic because you're losing connection with someone you value, or because you're losing the validation that makes you feel steady about yourself? Be honest. There's no judgment here, just awareness. A high-value man is not afraid of self-examination. He does not pretend he is unaffected. He simply refuses to let his identity hinge on someone else's mood. If her silence shakes your confidence, that is not love. That is dependency. Don't react from that place. Pause. Reflect. Regulate yourself first. You must be able to sit with uncertainty without scrambling to escape it. That is masculine energy in action. That is how you attract women without chasing them. Now let's talk about communication. This is where subtle psychology makes all the difference. Share your own experiences with fear and vulnerability, not to gain sympathy or create pity, but to create connection. Instead of saying, I really like you and I'm scared of losing you, try, I've been in situations where I got too attached too fast and it backfired, so I understand the hesitation. Same message, completely different energy. The first statement quietly places pressure on her to manage your anxiety. The second shows self-awareness. The second shows growth. The second shows that you understand female psychology and the complexity of how emotions develop. Be reflective, not reactive. Be grounded, not grasping. See what happened there? You shifted from needing reassurance to demonstrating stability to demonstrating understanding. That shift is powerful. It tells her you can hold space for difficult emotions without collapsing. It gives her permission to be human. It removes the pressure to have everything figured out immediately. It shows that you are not demanding certainty from her just to feel secure. That is rare. That is attractive. That is how a high-value man stands out, without announcing it. Here's a paradox most men overlook. When you stop relying on her to feel secure, she starts feeling safe with you. Security does not come from someone who clings tightly. It comes from someone who can let things unfold naturally. When she senses that you are stable, with or without constant reassurance, her nervous system relaxes. She does not feel managed. She does not feel responsible for your emotional state. She feels free, and freedom is essential. If you want to attract women in a healthy, lasting way, you already have this capacity. You've lived enough life to know that desperation never builds strong foundations. You just need to trust your steadiness. Don't overextend to prove your value. Don't shrink to avoid vulnerability. Be centered, be expressive, be self-contained. Emotional depth invites connection. Emotional dependency suffocates it. Choose depth. Strengthen your masculine energy. Watch how differently women respond when they feel they are with a man who understands himself first. Here's the shift that ends confusion for good. Every minute you spend decoding her silence is a minute you're not building the man you're meant to be. Let that land. You don't pause your life while a woman decides whether she's ready to feel something real. You don't sit in the waiting room of your own future. Because while you're figuring her out, time keeps moving. Your body changes, your money changes, your opportunities change. Your confidence either grows or shrinks. Stop making her signals the center of your day. This is where old Stoic wisdom hits like a hammer. Control what you can control, your actions, your standards, your discipline, and release what you cannot. Her timing, her fears, her mixed energy. As Epictetus said, it's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. Her quiet is not a verdict, it's information. And the man with an iron mind reads information without spiraling, without begging, without performing for reassurance. Here's how to act. Train your body. Hit the gym. Not to trigger jealousy, not to seek revenge, not to glow up for someone else, but because physical discipline forges mental discipline. A stronger body carries a calmer nervous system. A calmer nervous system allows you to study under pressure, pursue goals relentlessly, not to prove worth, but because purpose is the loudest form of confidence. Women don't feel safe with a man who hovers. They feel safe with a man who is anchored. Build your craft, build your business, build your routine, build your mission. Stoicism isn't a slogan. It's a daily decision to act with self-respect when emotions try to hijack your focus. Spend time with people who value you, not to show her you have options, but because quality relationships reflect your worth. Back to you. When your mind tempts you to bargain for attention, create something you're proud of. Not for her approval, but because a man on a mission is naturally attractive. He's not negotiable with himself. Give yourself credit if you've already started. Most men don't even begin. Keep going. Because when she sees you thriving, not pleading, not pausing, not collapsing under distance, two things happen. First, she realizes you're not putting your life on hold for her. Second, she begins to feel safe. A man who is secure in himself is someone she can trust with something fragile. Here's the paradox. The more you fixate on her, the less attractive you become. The more you focus on yourself, the more attractive you become. Not because you're playing games, but because you're demonstrating the one quality she's secretly looking for, and sometimes afraid to bet on: stability. Stability is not boring. It's rare, it's premium. It separates impulse from commitment. Marcus Aurelius said it plainly: you have power over your mind, not outside events. So don't crumble when tested. Be the man who understands her fear without absorbing it. Be the man who gives space without vanishing. Be the man who stays grounded when the situation feels uncertain. That is maturity. That is leadership. And maturity is what transforms fear into trust over time. You can't force someone to stop being afraid, but you can become the kind of man whose steadiness makes fear feel unnecessary through consistency, depth, and self-respect. Modern life is noisy. Texts, read receipts, social media, endless advice. Men get trained to chase clarity like a drug. Don't chase character, chase discipline. Build an iron mind that doesn't beg for closure. The real test isn't whether she chooses you. The real test is whether you can stay interested without becoming obsessed. Because the moment obsession takes over, you don't just risk losing her, you lose yourself. Old Stoic wisdom calls that the only real defeat. Choose differently. Choose stoicism. Win every day. If this message hit home, don't brush it off. That quiet shift in her behavior isn't always distance. It can be emotion she doesn't fully know how to handle yet. Stay steady. Don't chase. Don't panic. Respond with calm confidence instead of pressure. That is strength. And strength creates safety. If this opened your eyes even a little, subscribe to Insider Psychology for more insights on connection without losing yourself. Drop a comment with the word clarity to lock it in. Sign number 3, attentive listening and engaged responses. This sign is all about how she behaves during your conversations. Watch closely. Does she lean in when you talk? Nod, smile, or mirror your gestures? Ask thoughtful questions or laugh a little longer at your jokes. These are strong signals that she's truly listening and interested. Why does this matter? Women often show attraction by giving full attention to someone they care about. Psychologically, this comes from a desire to connect, emotionally and mentally. When she focuses on your words, she's quietly signaling that she values your thoughts and enjoys engaging with you. So how do you keep that connection strong? Simple. Match her interest. Be fully present. Show her you're not just hearing her, but actually understanding her. Lean in slightly when she speaks. Maintain eye contact and give thoughtful, meaningful responses. Avoid short or distracted answers and don't let your mind wander. She will notice if your attention drifts. Most importantly, don't try to control the conversation. Ask open-ended questions that encourage her to share more about herself. When you show that you care about the discussion as much as she does, you create a natural, balanced connection where mutual interest grows. Sign number 4, playful teasing and flirting. This is where things get fun. If she makes light jokes, gently challenges you, or playfully debates over small things, it's a strong sign she's interested. Women often flirt this way to build comfort and excitement. Psychologically, teasing helps create trust and a special bond. It shows she feels relaxed enough around you to be herself and enjoy the interaction. When you notice this, respond with confidence and humor. Match her energy without trying to compete. For example, if she teases you about your favorite drink, smile and tease her back in a friendly, lighthearted way. Keep things positive, natural, and fun. Avoid taking her jokes too seriously. Don't become defensive or overanalyze her words. Instead, flow with the playful energy and use it to showcase your charm. Responding with wit and confidence shows her you're fun to be around and that you understand her sense of humor.